Hey everyone, it's Kara, and today we're going to be making Nutella cupcakes. And these are chocolate cupcakes. They're really super moist and fluffy, and then they're filled with Nutella, and then the topping is a Nutella chocolate buttercream. You're going to love these. If you are a chocolate and or Nutella fan, these are the ones for you. So the first thing that you want to do is fill 2 cupcake pans with cupcake liners, and it's going to make about 24 cupcakes. So here you see that I ran out of my white cupcake liners, and I'm just filling with the silver ones. And I also like to spray the liners as well so that the cupcakes don't stick. First, you're going to add 2 cups of all-purpose flour to a large mixing bowl. Then you're going to add 3/4 cup of unsweetened natural cocoa powder, not the Dutch processed, that's a different type. Then add 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1 teaspoon of salt. Then you're going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1 cup of packed brown sugar, and I just use light brown sugar. Then you're going to mix this up well, and you don't have to have a stand mixer. You can do any part of this recipe with a hand mixer. So now take a cup of milk, measure out a cup of milk, and make sure it's near room temperature, and you're going to add 1 teaspoon of lemon juice or vinegar. Mix it up, and you're going to mix it up real well, and then let it sit there for about 5 minutes. You're essentially making a buttermilk, but it's more like a sour milk. So it's going to help tenderize the cake a little bit more, and it's going to add some acidity to it, and it just does some wonderful things for the cake texture. So then you're going to add a 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, melt it and cool down just a little bit. Then you're going to add in that milk mixture that you just made. Then a 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and you can use canola oil if you have that. 3 large eggs, and make sure the eggs are near room temperature. You don't want them super cold. And then 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I don't ever measure it, just measure it with your heart. So just whisk this up really well. So now you're going to pour that liquid mixture into the dry mixture and mix it up. So you want to make sure that you're just mixing it until it's well combined, but you're not mixing too long, because scratch cakes, if you mix them too long, they're going to get really rubbery or they're going to come out dry. So just mix it until it's well combined, and then take your spatula and make sure to get around the edges of the pan or the bowl, and then the bottom of the bowl. You can see here that my mixer misses the whole bottom some of the time. So mix that up, and then add in a 1/2 cup of hot coffee or hot water. You don't have to have coffee. You can use hot water instead. And then I always mix it up with a little piece of plastic wrap over the top, because it's going to splash out if you don't. So a quick word about the coffee. The coffee just brings out the flavor of the chocolate. The actual cupcake's not going to taste like coffee. But if you don't have coffee or you hate the idea, just use hot water. Don't skip adding in the liquid though. You have to add that liquid in so that the cakes will be moist. So don't skip it. Just add hot water if you want to do that. So now I'm just filling the cupcake liners, and I filled them about 2/3 of the way full, sometimes a little bit more than that. And the batter's going to be a little bit liquidy, and that's okay. That's normal for this cake batter. All right, so now you're going to bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 18 to 20 minutes. Ovens will vary. And you want to let them cool in the pan on a cooling rack for about 10 minutes or so, just like that. And so now just take a spoon and pull them out of the cupcake pans and let them cool on a cooling rack the rest of the way. You want them completely cool before you add any filling or add any of the frosting on top. Now we're going to make the buttercream frosting, and you're going to add 1.5 cups of unsalted butter, and make sure that it is room temperature butter because it's going to be way easier to mix up. And now add in 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. And I'm just covering everything with that plastic wrap because cocoa powder goes everywhere. So just mix that up and make sure you're mixing that up really well until it's smooth. You may have to get a spatula and kind of mix it up by hand a little bit. Sometimes my stand mixer doesn't do a good job of that. It doesn't get all the way down to the bottom. So once that is good and mixed, now you're going to start adding in the confectioner's sugar. You're going to add 4 cups in total. So I like to add mine in sections like this, so half up front and then half later, because if you add it all up front, you can have confectioner's sugar going all over your kitchen. Now add about 1/2 cup of Nutella to your mixture here. And that's going to give the frosting a slight Nutella flavor. And then just mix that up until everything is well mixed and very smooth. Now you're going to add in the milk, and you can add in 1 to 3 tablespoons of milk, but only add in 1 tablespoon at a time because it's way easy to get too much milk and then your icing is just going to be too liquidy. So just add in 1 tablespoon of milk, mix it, and then add in another tablespoon if you need it. Just go from there. Just keep testing out the consistency, and if it needs more, add a little bit as you go. Now, when you get it to the consistency you want it, you want to set the mixer on medium high or high and then whip it up like that for a few minutes. It's going to get really light and fluffy. All right, so now we're going to work on filling the cupcakes, and there's a couple of different ways you can do this. This first way I'm showing you here is with a Bismarck tip, and this was not my favorite way to do that. You put the Nutella in a piping bag fitted with a Bismarck tip, and then you squeeze it into each cupcake. This is usually how I fill my cupcakes, but the Nutella is really pretty thick. You can warm it up a bit, but if you warm it up, it just kind of just falls right out of the piping bag. And if you do it this way, make sure your piping bag is really tough and strong because you have to squeeze it pretty hard. This way, I didn't get as much Nutella inside the cupcake, so I went a different route for the rest of the cupcakes. And I warmed up the Nutella in a bowl. You don't want it super hot, but you want it a little bit warm so that it's easier to kind of scoop or spoon into your cupcakes. And so I'm just taking a knife and coring out a small section in the middle of the cupcake, pulling it out, a little bit of the cake out, and then just spoon the Nutella right into the middle of that cupcake hole. And then I just tapped it in there and put a little bit of that cupcake back on top of it. And what I found is when you chill the cupcakes just for a little bit, you don't want to chill them much because you'll dry out a cupcake if you put it in the fridge too long. But if you chill them just enough, you can actually get a better piece of that middle cupcake out. It cuts a little easier. It doesn't crumble quite as much, is what I'm trying to say. So this is what I did with the rest of the cupcakes, and it worked out much better. You get much more Nutella inside of each cupcake. All right, so for the frosting, I'm just adding frosting to a large piping bag, and I think I used a Wilton 3M piping tip. You can use a 2D or a 3M, either one of them. They kind of look a little similar. And then I'm just piping rosettes all over the tops of all of the cupcakes. And you can add as much or as little as you want. Don't worry if you don't have any piping tips. You can also just spoon it on. It's just as good. You just want it on the cupcake. All right, y'all. I hope that you loved this one. I think it's going to be a family favorite. Our grown kids loved it. Our neighbors loved it. I hope you try it out. Let me know what you think. Happy cake baking, and I will see you next time. Bye.